All right, guys and gals, excuse me, don't mean to be gender biased. This is Dr. Mark Keuthan here to try and see if I can alleviate some of the confusion about the final big project for Redemptive Cinema. So I'm taking a look at the handy-dandy syllabus over here on the other screen, and it says the major paper is based on this prompt right here. How film narrative can include important theological truth. This prompt, this topic is purposely wide. It doesn't use the word redemptive because we've already kind of covered that earlier in the semester with the definition essay on what is redemptive, but you'll use that information and what you've learned since then about what is redemptive by writing about film critiques and looking at a bunch of movies to do this final paper right here, because theological truth can be a lot of things to a lot of people. And in this day and age, there are lots of films with lots of redemptive elements to them. Or perhaps you believe exactly the opposite, and there are no films with redemptive elements to them. So it's wide on purpose. You're supposed to look back at all of the films you've taken a look at this semester, this course, and the reading that you've done, and the papers that you've written, and maybe you now know how film narrative can include important theological truth. All the way from, I see this as a sliding scale, all the way from the Kendrick brothers who, in films like Courageous and War Room, give you full-on, absolutely undeniable gospel presentation. Redemption is obvious. Passion of the Christ. Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ is a very good example of full-on, no doubt about it, redemptive presentation of the gospel. All the way over to the fantasy films, which I just got reading your papers on, which sometimes have Christ-like figures or symbolic representations of elements of theological truth or biblical truth, maybe sometimes. Excuse me. The other part of this is the rest of the world sees theological truth a little bit differently. So they make films differently to portray what they believe to be theological truth. So you've got a wide open field of things to talk about if you want to get going on film narrative, how film narrative can include important theological truth. So you're going to have to quote from films that you've taken a look at. You're going to need to quote authorities, scholars, film experts, people like Scorsese, for example. Doesn't have a degree, but he's definitely a film expert. People like Brian Godawa, for example, is a great film expert. There's bunches of them, lots and lots of authorities, scholars, and experts that you can use to build up and strengthen and uphold your ideas and points in your paper. You're also going to be critiquing important ideas, which we just covered that. We just took a look at, excuse me, what that means. Important ideas, concepts, improvements, and or game changes revealed during your research. There have definitely been some films that come along that were game changers. Ones where everybody went, oh, that's what redemption could mean. Okay. All righty then. Let's take a different look at this. But most importantly, you exercise your own critical powers of proposing your own theories, your ideas, your conclusions, and answering your project question. And you have to support these. It's okay to have an opinion, a great opinion, but it has to be provable from the text. If that's a film, if that's an expert, whatever, but you still have to be able to back up your opinions. So you have to have at least 5 sources, and you have to have, it has to be in MLA format. And it's not very long. It's actually not very long. 2,000 words is not long at all. Some of you are going to be really hard-pressed to stop at 2,000 words. So, I mean, I'm not going to kill you if you go over 2,000 words, but please try and stay in that ballpark. Okay, make sure that you post your this on week 6 discussion board and the assignment, which you would find in course content for week 6. So post it in both places so that you have the possibility of getting all points. Now, to further help you try and get rid of this, I've got some examples. I'm going to pull out from the handy-dandy past some papers and some presentations, because the second part of this, let's look ahead, and let's see here. Let's look ahead to week 7, when you will have the media component on this. So you're going to take your paper and you're going to turn it into a documentary. All right, you all want to be filmmakers, right? So why not practice right now in a safe environment? In a safe environment. So you're going to create a documentary from your written paper, which you did in week 6. You're going to use either PowerPoint or Prezi or create a video. Any of those will be fine. It has to have voiceover narration. It can't just be a whole bunch of slides. That doesn't cut it. That's not a documentary. That's a PowerPoint. Excuse me. And it has to be at least 25 to 30 slides, PowerPoint, Prezi, or with voiceover narration, or a 4 to 5 minute video. 2,000 words will turn out to be around 4 to 5 minute videos. Now, if you insert film clips, it can be longer than that. I'm not limiting you to 4 to 5 minutes. And some of you have done some tremendous jobs in the past of creating videos, inserting, because you can do this in Prezi. You can insert with no problem. A Prezi presentation can insert videos. I do it all the time. I make Prezi presentations all the time, which means when you're done, you send me the link so I can go watch it. You list all your sources at the end like credits. Okay, so that's what you're up to. So let me show you some examples of what this looks like. Here is a paper from last semester. He won't mind if I show you this. In fact, it's going to appear on the screen here in just a moment. Here it comes. This is by Christopher Wood. It's called, let's see here. What I like about this paper is you'll notice right away is that he has subheadings. You can do that. In MLA, you can have subheadings. So the theological standard, he uses dictionaries and encyclopedias here. And then he goes to the critics, the guide to measurement, which is the film scholars and the experts. He's using quotes, thoughts from the experts. This is another subheading for this paper. But anyway, this is just an example of a paper where Mr. Wood took his ideas, he did some research, and he came up with a paper. This one is 7 pages long. It is slightly over 2,000 words, but not much. Not much over 2,000 words. And when you get to the end, now, I will tell you this, it's not entirely and absolutely correctly in MLA format. Not entirely. Nevertheless, it is good research. It is some good writing. More importantly for me, it's good critical thinking. A good critical thinking on display can overcome a world of difficulties in other areas like format. And so you can see his sources. There they go. All right, so there's an example. Let me show you one more example. Let's see here. I'm going to, there we go, Mr. Rivas. Mr. Joshua Rivas gives us an example of what is just about nearly the perfect paper. I think Mr. Rivas got very close to 100 on his project. But you can see right away, first of all, let me point out one little tiny MLA format thing. He does what I do. He buys Kindle and iBooks versions of the textbooks, the books he wants to use. I have to do that because I'm partially blind, and to have it on the screen in an ebook format makes it possible for me to blow up the words really big, and that means I can see it, read it. In fact, I can have my computer read it to me. I can have my iPhone read it to me, as a matter of fact. Isn't that fun? Okay, by the way, there's the, look, there we go. Aren't they cute? That's my, you can't see them. That's my wife and son. Let's see here. Because Kindle will do this for you. You notice right here, right at the very top of this, he quotes from a source, and I can tell which source it is because in parentheses, he has the author's last name, location in the Kindle book, and the paragraph that it came from, so that I could go find it if I wanted to. And in some cases, I do. Many cases, you guys show me new sources I've never seen before, and I go find them, because I'm always looking for good sources for great information. And so this is how, this is MLA perfect, to be able to denote where you got your sources, where you got your quotes, your paraphrases, whatever, from a source from a Kindle book. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. The other thing I like about Mr. Rivas's paper is, I'm going to scroll all the way down here and look at this works cited. Great sources. These are solid, scholarly sources. He obviously did some deep research on this, and that goes a long, long way for me. You come up with a whole bunch of weak sources like Wikipedia or, just a whole bunch of dictionaries, your chance of getting full points is less than if you do what Mr. Rivas did, which is he did some serious. By the way, heartily recommend this book that's on here. I've read it. Mr. Josh Larson's book, Movies Are Prayers, How Films Voice Our Deepest Longings. Great book. I'm actually going to use it starting next semester, as a matter of fact, in secular redemptive cinema. That is the textbook for that class. So buy it, put it on your bookshelf. Anyway, these are tremendous sources, very, very good sources, including the Bible. So just very briefly, I just want to read you just his opening paragraph and his conclusion, because you'll get a sense of what his paper is about if I do that. Here we go. Films can illuminate one's faith, challenge our thinking, entertain us, and provide comfort. To many others, they find a cinema-rich repository of images that celebrate the human spirit and put us in touch with the divine. As Christians, we should take movies seriously because whether we like it or not, they shape people's ideas and values. Just as films have the power to illuminate one's faith and put them in touch with the divine, I believe they also have the power to seduce and lead us astray. Given the power of the media, becoming conversant with its mixed messages is an essential tool for Christian life. It can tell right away he's got the sense of what the writing prompt was about. What do you believe narrative film does in this day and age with theological truth? You can tell his thinking process, his critical thinking process, is on target and focused on that idea. We must be able to judge a film and know when it is edifying and when it is not. When looking out to our media-saturated culture, oops, phone's ringing, but I'm not going to answer it. That would be rude. Let's see. Where am I? When looking out to our media-saturated culture, it is beneficial to use the process of enculturation, also known as contextual theology, discovering where Christ is already active within a given culture. Applying the process of enculturation can lead the dualistic approach to films. Essentially, here's his thesis statement. Essentially, a Christian can watch a secular film that expresses the search for meaning and theology can point toward its resolution. We can find theological truths within movies. Excellent opening paragraph. He introduces the topic. He gives you a thesis statement. And he entices you, that's called a hook, he entices you to want to read the rest of the essay. Here's his concluding paragraph. Let's see if he accomplished what he intended to from his opening paragraph. To conclude, I have come to see that film storytelling can include theological truths. Reflecting and exploring movies to develop a dialogue is important in reaching today's media-saturated culture. The cinema's parables can provide us with a venue in which to fulfill the Great Commission. The understanding of films can help to spread the gospel. Ultimately, movies matter because they entertain us, cast light on our lives, challenge, provoke us, help us grieve, reduce us to peals of laughter, open other worlds, and expose some dark realities. That is an outstanding closing paragraph. This is a very well-written paper, and this is a good example. I'm going to post it so you can take a look at it. I don't think Josh will mind. But if you want to see a good example, not the only way to do this topic, nevertheless, an outstanding paper for this project. Now, to take these things and turn them into videos, let me show you what some people have done. So here's one. I'm not going to be able to play the audio for you. Just know that there is audio. If you see down here at the bottom right corner, you see that there's that little icon that indicates that there's narrative. That there's voiceover. So Mr. Wood actually did do voiceover narrative. He did. Excuse me. Now, I have some complaints about this PowerPoint. It's fine, but one of my main complaints about this is that There should never, ever be in a PowerPoint visual presentation as a final project, for me at least, there should never be a slide with no image on it. There should never be a slide with no image on it. A slide with just text is not a PowerPoint presentation. It does not take full advantage of the software. Otherwise, this is just, the text of your paper in little bites on separate slides. That's not a presentation. So don't do this. Look, I've got slide after slide of just text. And there's one with a but look, the image here is an image with text. No, don't do this. This will lower your grade. I guarantee you, if you do this, this will lower your grade. He did not get full points on his presentation, which is a separate project, separate set of points altogether, because he did page slide for slide of nothing but text. No. Do more. Push yourself more. So finally we're getting to, as he talks about movies, finally we get to some images. Book of Eli is one of my favorite movies. Love Book of Eli. Denzel. It's very bloody. It's very rated R. It's got some bad language. But if you want to see a great parable of redemption, where the central artifact of the story is the Word of God, watch the Book of Eli. Every guy taking this course knows the Book of Eli. But ladies, I don't know. If you can handle the blood, watch it. Let's see here. So here's, Gladiator's another one. Actually, I'm going to tell you something. I like Green Mile better than Shawshank Redemption. Green Mile is more redemptive from a Christian standpoint than Shawshank Redemption is. Even though redemption is in the title, right? Okay. And Pixar, love Pixar, so redemptive. So many Christians working at Pixar. So many Christians working at Pixar, including a man named Pete Docter. Yes, that actually is his last name. He did the movie Up. If you've never seen the movie Up, go get it today. It is a great film. Okay, and here's his credits at the end. So this is an example, but I've got one more for you. I have another movie example for you. So this is a PowerPoint. All right, so we'll put that down. But I also have a movie. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Now this is done for a different class. This is done for film history, which I teach in the summer. Sometimes I taught it last summer. This is from the studio era, my favorite era in filmmaking, in film history. But this is done by Mr. Matthew Ingalls. Mr. Ingalls did an outstanding job of turning his paper on film history into a movie, a video, an actual documentary. Beautifully done, beautifully done, beautifully done. So I'm going to play it for you, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It's only about 6 minutes long. So here you go. Take a look.
The period of silent film history that this exploration will examine more closely is between 1914 and 1918, when cinema as a new art form was changed forever. World War I started in 1914 and ended in 1918. The war had profound effects on the international cinema, some of which are still felt today. The war effort severely curtailed filmmaking in the two leading producing countries, France and Italy. American companies stepped in to fill the vacuum. As of 1916, the United States became the major supplier of films to the world market and has held that position ever since. The war also limited the free flow of films and influence across borders. The result was the isolation of several film-producing countries, where for the first time distinctive national cinema evolved, in countries such as Germany, developing their expressionistic methodologies, or Russia with their slow-paced melancholy tones. By 1915, Hollywood firms with their significant financial resources vertically integrated by owning and controlling film production through exhibition, thus dominating competition. In addition, studios pressured theaters they did not own monopolistically block booking. They required the theaters to show all their films weekly. If they didn't comply, they wouldn't receive any films from the studio. In 1917, a group of them band together to finance and distribute independent features. Vertical integration and block booking continued to be a challenge for theaters until the Hollywood Antitrust Act, or antitrust case of 1948 between the United States governments and Paramount Pictures. No longer could studios distribute primarily to theaters they owned or to those they had agreements with. The ruling made ownership of theater chains by studios illegal. Since the star system gained full strength as celebrities came to command enormous salaries and began producing their own rights, studios also bought the rights to many famous literary works and adapted them as vehicles for their stars. Hollywood filmmakers ultimately united to form industry standards for constructing coherent plots. Hollywood plots consisted of a major character given a set of comprehensible, consistent traits. A protagonist is typically goal-oriented. The hero's goal conflicts with the desires of other characters. Almost inevitably, one of them involves romance. The plot also arouses suspense through deadlines, escalating conflicts, and last-minute rescues. Serials, transitional episodic short films that carry an overall storyline, were started during this period. Serials originated at almost the same time in the United States as in France. The earliest American serial was The Adventures of Keuthan. Its episodes set in India were self-contained, but there was also an overall plot line. Episodic entertainment, such as feature film series and television shows, are forms of serials. The period marked the end for some filmmakers' careers, such as Thomas Edison, one of the producers for The Patchwork Girl of Oz, while others were gaining momentum, such as Raoul Walsh, D.W. Griffith, and John Ford. These filmmakers discovered ideas and concepts to improve cinematic storytelling. They implemented astounding compositions utilizing backlights, lengthy shots to establish a perception of normal time passing, artistic mise-en-scene to enhance illusory settings, and distinctive editing by cutting extensive discordance components to emphasize a point. In Walsh's regeneration in 1915, small cracks are opened up between the diffusing sheets, letting direct sunlight peep onto the set to pick out an actor's face, while allowing the soft daylight to provide general illumination. D.W. Griffith revolutionized filmmaking by varying camera positions during each scene, invented the fade-outs, explored use of backlighting, introduced cross-cutting, and experimented with color, as can be seen in his epic Birth of a Nation in 1915. Straight Shooting, 1917, one of Ford's earliest films, displays his talents as a filmmaker. His compositions are comprised of wide-angle shots with deep space staging, balanced using natural landscapes, intimate close-ups, and authentic set designs enhancing the mise-en-scene. Ford experimented with the use of lengthy shots, which inevitably became a staple to his filmmaking repertoire. One of the most important filmmakers of this period was Charles Chaplin, also known as Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin grew up in poverty in England, but was also on stage since the age of 5 years old. In 1914, after touring the U.S. with a theater group, Chaplin signed a contract with Mark Sennett to work for the Keystone Film Company. While at Keystone, Chaplin performed and directed 35 movies, starring as a Little Tramp character in most of them. The Little Tramp character, with its oversized footwear, bowler hat, and cane, made Chaplin an international star. Chaplin's style was notable for his comically inappropriate use of objects, as in The Pawn Shop, 1916, where he gauges the value of a clock by listening to it ticking with a stethoscope. His dexterity led to many elaborately choreographed fights, chases, mix-ups, such as the breakneck shenanigans on the roller skates in the rink. In a few of his films, such as The Vagabond and The Immigrants, Chaplin also introduced an element of pathos, unknown to slapstick films. Chaplin wrote, produced, directed, acted, and edited hundreds of films over his lifetime. He was also one of the founding members of the film production company United Artists. Additional noteworthy films of this time period include, but are not limited to, The Pearls of Pauline in 1914. The protagonist, played by Pearl White, is to inherit a fortune after her uncle passes away and she gets married. However, her guardian tries to get rid of her and take her inheritance. This serial made Pearl White a star after struggling for years on stage and in short films. Alice in Wonderland 1915 is based on Lewis Carroll's novel Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, originally published in 1865. The director, Young, creatively used costumes and props to bring the story to life on screen. Zip suggests Young's adaptation shows the most innovation because the characters in Alice's dreams are anticipated in her real-life experiences on an American farm. Sherlock Holmes in 1916 brings the murder mystery genre front and center. Sherlock is on a case to discover the whereabouts of an abducted lady. In Cleopatra in 1917, J. Gordon Edwards merges the historical with fantasy. Theda Bara plays Cleopatra as a vampire queen who gets intertwined in romance encounters in Rome. In conclusion, 1914 and 1918 had major game changers, brilliant ideas and concepts that improved cinematic storytelling, creative filmmakers, and amazing films. This period altered cinema forever.
Okay, so there you go. There's some examples, a PowerPoint, a video, 2 papers, and some explanation from me directly from the syllabus. So that should give you some sense of how to get started on the final project for this class. So if you have any further questions, anything, ideas you want to bounce off of me, message me, email me, whatever, and I'll get back to you. If we have to have a collaborate live session to be able to sort of hash this out for some of you, we can do that. But anyway, this is Dr. Mark Keuthan signing off and telling you have a great weekend and begin to put your mind and heart in the direction of seek the Lord. Seek out the Lord and what he would have you to do for this project. This is Dr. Mark Keuthan signing off, and have fun on the project because quite frankly, guys, making movies is fun. Bye-bye.